What's up, guys? Welcome to the Chess Giant. This is Solomon Ardell, and today we have our 9th installment of the subscriber game analysis series when y'all send in one of your own games and it has a chance to get analyzed on this channel. Now, today's game comes from my guy Billy, and if you know Billy at all, this dude is a birds opening specialist. I've got to chat back and forth with him for almost a year now, and he knows his stuff. In fact, he played this game against a 2298 player and didn't win, but played the opening nearly flawlessly and even got a +3 advantage at move 7. Now here against the bird's opening, Billy's opponent started off with this move e5. And guys, really what the bird's opening is a reverse Dutch opening type system. Opening with f4, it really does offer us a ton of flexibility, but a lot of players don't go with this because they are scared of this very intense looking move e5 with the Sturm Gambit. But guys, trust me, if we are well prepared for what to do against this move, as intimidating as it may seem, we're going to be more than okay. Here we're going to take on e5, and after the move d6, there's really a couple of different options here. One of them is knight f3, and the other, which Billy played, was taking that pawn on d6. Here black took back with the bishop, and guys, notice here, we do have to be careful. I mean, if we just play a move like knight c3, all of a sudden, we notice just how active the queen and the bishop are. Here black is able to play queen h4 with check, and after g3, black could take with either the bishop or even the queen. And the very next move, guys, it's move 6, and this game's over. So y'all, in this position, we really do need to be cautious about these two very active pieces. And here, just play the move knight f3. This is the single move that gives white the edge, obviously not allowing queen h4 with check. And here black plays the main move, or most played move at least, of g5, expanding on the king side. Here looking to potentially play g4, but guys, we can't prepare for g4 with a normal look like h3. This has been played nearly 2,500 times in online chess on Lichess, and guess what, guys? This move simply loses to bishop g3 checkmate. So y'all, we can't play a normal move like h3 and try to slow down this move or at least inhibit it a little bit. Guys, we have to play the move g3 ourselves. Notice what we're doing here. Yes, bishop g3 could be played, but it is protected by our h-pawn, and at any moment, if black plays g4, we have knight h4 ready to go, and we have successfully held on to this kingside position. Here white has about a +1 advantage, and black continues now with the move h5, allowing Billy to continue with d4 advancing in the center of the board. And against the move g4, Billy now plays knight h4. And y'all, many of you have probably heard of the term that the knight on the rim is dim, but guys, in this position, this knight is surprisingly strong. It really is holding some key squares, including g6 and f5. And here black plays the move knight e7, trying to play either knight g6 or maybe even knight f5 ideas. Because of this, Billy plays queen d3. At first sight, this may seem like a huge blunder, but it's not. Just bringing this queen out, attacking both f5 and g6, preventing this knight from even thinking about coming to either of these squares. And now his opponent plays the move knight bc6. I mean, guys, this is a 2300 rated player that he's going up against. And here black does have a couple of potential little tricks. One of them is taking on d4. I mean, for example, if we just develop here with a move like knight c3, black takes on d4, and all of a sudden, white could fall into trouble very quickly. If we take on d4, by the way, well, we're simply going to lose a queen to discovered check. Bishop takes g3, and the queen falls. In addition to this knight takes d4 idea, black also has ideas of knight b4, this knight attacking both the queen and the pawn on c2. So here we see Billy continue with c3, a solid and very strong move, really just holding this position together, the dark squares of d4 and b4, and this queen and knight holding both g6 and f5. Here black continues with the move f5 themselves, trying to potentially create something on the king side of the board. But now Billy just recognizes a weakness, and that is this square on g5. Bishop g5 was played at a moment's notice, pinning this knight on e7. And the computer here actually likes the move queen e3, pinning the knight yet again, and defending this bishop on g5. But here we see the move bishop takes knight, which is, by the way, far from a mistake. We're up a pawn here. We have a solid position. Why not trade down? Why not try to get rid of some of black's firepower? We see this move knight takes e7, trying to hold on to this pawn on f5. And now we see Billy just continue to play natural developmental chess, knight d2, and against bishop e6, bishop g2. Now, whether or not black plays the crazy Sturm Gambit, this bishop on g2 is a very good idea oftentimes in the bird's opening and is very active right now, pouncing down on the b7 pawn. really forcing a move like c6, in which case we now see rook f1. By the way, guys, Billy could have castled kingside here. He decided not to, but this king on g1 is actually surprisingly safe. It may seem a little bit intimidating with all of these advanced pawns, but what is black really going to do here? I mean, if a move like f4, we're just going to take the pawn, and if a move like queen c7 trying to prepare this move, we can now play e4 ourselves, attacking this pawn f5. If our pawn gets captured, okay, we're going to have an active knight right in the center of the board, attacking the bishop, eyeing knight f6 check ideas. And if black pushes here with f4, trying to make something out of nothing, well, we just play e5. And all of a sudden, guys, this bishop on d6 is simply trapped. So again, guys, Billy could have put his king here on g1 instead of keeping it on e1. But even now, I still think that white is better. Against this move, queen d7, we now see white castling queenside. And some of you may be wondering, okay, what on earth is Billy doing? This bishop pair is very active. In fact, why doesn't black just take the pawn on a2? And that's actually what black did. But now Billy has this very simple move of b3. We're very thankful, by the way, that this pawn on c3 is not on c2, because that would be a mate in one. But now against the move bishop a3 check, we simply bring that king up one square. And now we see that by black taking this pawn on a2, this was actually simply too greedy, because we played the move b3, and now this bishop is trapped. This is actually a common technique and strategy that you can use in your own games, at least offer it to your opponent at times. If your opponent plays a move like bishop e6 in a position like that and is trying to take that pawn on a2, just keep developing, let them take that pawn, play a move like b3, and you're going to have yourself a bishop. Here, black, really in desperation, plays the move a5 followed by a4, trying to create some kind of attack against this king. But now we see Billy just take that bishop right off the board, and against a takes b3, capture back with the knight. And here the move b5 was the move decided upon by black. And now white, Billy with the white pieces has quite a few good options here. One of them is playing the move knight c5, just attacking this queen. Notice how this bishop cannot take the knight or really even move, because we simply win this rook on a8. And another good option which Billy played is simply taking this pawn on f5. Here after the move b4, again, black just trying to do something here. Billy very wisely just ignores the pawn and now takes this knight on e7. Here black probably wanted to take back with the queen, but this just opens up too much. In fact, if queen takes e7 is played, we can take on c6 with check, attacking the king and the rook. On top of that, we could also just play a move like queen e4 against queen takes e7 and simply go into the endgame a piece ahead. So here we see the move king takes e7, but now Billy actually missed an opportunity to win the game pretty quickly, and that was by playing the move queen h7. This was a hard move to find. Moves like this, I mean, just throwing your queen almost to the very corner of the board can be difficult, but now black is simply losing, because if a move like king e8 or king d8, thank you for the rook, and if the king steps up to e6, knight c5 check is played, thank you for the queen, and a checkmate the very next move. And if a move like king d6, okay, let's get all of our pieces involved, throw our rook onto the 6th rank, forcing that king back to c7, in which case we can now play a move like rook f7, or even better, rook takes c6 with check. Notice here again, guys, I mean, if a move like king b7 or king b8, we're going to take that queen on d7, and if king d8 is played here, we're taking this rook. Guys, here, if you plug this into the computer position and black plays perfectly, we have a mate in 13. This game's simply over. Again, y'all, Billy missed this opportunity of queen h7, but instead went with this option of queen e4 check. Not a bad move at all, attacking this king, still with a huge advantage. And against the move king d8, here we see Billy take on c6. I do think that white may have benefited here with a move like knight c5. I mean, our king really isn't in danger, guys. Why not throw this knight into c5, kind of kick this queen around a little bit and see what happens? But we do see the move queen takes c6, and now against the move rook c8, we now see queen takes d7 with check. And following king takes d7, notice in this position, guys, we are currently up a piece and 2 pawns. I do think that this move is when things started to go south for white. And by that, I mean that we see this move rook f7 check, attacking the king, which kind of loosens up our position and gives black some counterplay. Guys, if you're in a position like this and you're simply up a piece and 2 pawns, especially if you're playing up against a higher rated player, like a player rated at 2300, guys, just hold on to your material. In life, I'm not going to tell you to hold on to all your possessions and be selfish, okay? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying in chess, hold on to your material. Right now, this rook is attacking our pawn on c3, actually threatening to take it and potentially even capture our knight. Here, the best move was simply knight c5. We don't need to play any heroic chess, throw a rook down to f7, and try to make something happen really quick. Just keep this position together, play knight c5 check, hold on to every single pawn and piece that you can, attack the king, and we're simply going to be up 5 points of material. Here, though, we see this move rook f7 check, and following king e6, all of a sudden, things are starting to get a little bit more complicated. Here we see Billy move this rook on f7 to the square of h7, attacking this pawn on h5, and now black continuing by rook takes c3. And this move right here is when we really start to see the evaluation bar change. With king b1 being played, black is able to take on b3 with check, but here there is the idea of king d2. This is a very difficult and hard idea to find, especially in a blitz game, but here's the idea, guys. If we play king d2, and force this rook to b3, we would love to get our bishop on d5, right? I mean, if we could get our bishop to d5, we could be attacking both the rook and the rook on g8, of course, assuming that this king wasn't there, but this is very ideal. The question is, how do we distract this king from the d5 square? Well, we simply check it. We play this move rook h6 with check, removing the defender, quote unquote, of that square. This king has to go somewhere, and I don't care where this king goes. It can go to f5 or any of the other options. No matter where it turns, we're going to play bishop d5, and all of a sudden, guys, we're about to get the rook back. So guys, in positions like this, minor pieces can actually be surprisingly helpful when the opponent has rooks spread out on squares like b3 and g8. Always be eyeing ideas like that with bishop d5. Obviously, if black takes on b3, their pieces are a little bit loose, and that would have been very nice for white. However, here again, guys, I mean, that move king d2 is extremely hard to find. So here we see the move king b1, in which case black now takes with check, and then the very next move, checks again, and following king d2 and rook gc8, this king, guys, is in some major trouble depending on what we play. White here plays rook takes h5, which is a solid move, and now black responds with bishop c1 check, and following king d1 plays bishop e3. Guys, we are one move away from losing this game. The only hope right now is to somehow checkmate this king or get a perpetual check, and there's only one move here that does it. That move being rook to e5. We see this move rook a6, but let's cover real quick why rook e5 and how rook e5 works in this position. Well, first off, if a move like king f6 is played or king f7, all of a sudden, guys, this king is trapped in a box, and this rook on e5 is defended by the pawn on d4. So now we can use this a rook and start checking this king like crazy. I mean, rook a6 check, bring it there, keep checking again. If king f7, check again. We're just going to keep doing this. And notice here, if a rook move like rook c7 is played trying to block the checks, we're simply going to take the rook, remove the defender, and say thank you for the bishop, and go on to win that game. And notice here again, if a move like king f8 going to the back rank, all of a sudden, again, this king is trapped along the 8th rank. We can now play rook f5 with check. If king e8, check again. We're just going to keep checking back and forth. And black may be tempted to play king g8. I mean, at first sight, these rooks have ran out of checks. But guys, don't forget about this bishop. We now have bishop d5, forcing that king to the corner. Rook h5, forcing this bishop back. And guys, we have ourselves a game over. So y'all, that really covers the main strategy behind this move, rook e5 check. I mean, we're trying to get this king into this corner, trapped in this box. We're going to use this a rook like crazy, checking the king. And if the king ever goes to the 8th rank, okay, we'll take turns. This rook will now have the king trapped, and we'll use the e rook to really go crazy on that king and potentially even win the game. If this king ever goes to the g8 square, also notice if the king ever goes to d6 or d7, let's say the move king d6 is played, okay, we're now going to play rook d5 check, just sliding this rook over one move. And notice here, if a move like king c7, we're just going to play rook c5 with check, trading off rooks. And we're actually going to be up a pawn there, but end up with a dead even draw. And if a move like king back to e7 or e6, okay, we'll bring this rook right back to that e5 square. And guys, we're going to have ourselves a draw. But y'all, Billy missed this idea of rook e5 check, which I have to admit is extremely hard to find. And instead here plays the move rook a6. And even after this, black has a big decision to make now. There's 3 moves from black, including king d7, king e7, and king f7. Only one of these win, and that is the move king f7. Whole idea being, if rook h7 check, we attack that rook with king g8. And if this rook moves, well, game over. And notice here, if the move rook f5 check is played, which is what happened, we can now play king g7. Some of you may be wondering, what is the difference? I mean, we still have this king in a box. The difference is that our rook is no longer protected. If this rook was just one square to the left, we'd have a draw. But now this whole idea of rook a7 and rook a6 doesn't work because black could simply pick off our rook. So here we see the move rook a1. Here Billy trying to hold on to that c1 square. But now black just wins the game with rook c1 check. Rook takes c1, and we have ourselves a game over. Billy lost this game, guys, but he really did show a great effort, almost playing a nearly flawless game through the first 20 moves. And he only really made a couple of mistakes, but guys, it doesn't take much against a 2300 rated player. Great effort from Billy, and I think all of us, including myself, have learned a couple things from this game. If you'd like to learn the theory behind the bird's opening, click that video to the left. An absolutely great chess opening for white. And if you'd like to learn the Sturm Gambit, a fun gambit that you can play with the bird's opening, click that video to the right. Leave a comment down below to let me know what other videos you'd like to see covered on this channel. And as always, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Peace.